So this is the JBL Boombox 3. Unlike the Boombox 2, which was a very marginal upgrade from the original, the Boombox 3 looks very different on the outside and it's very different on the inside as well. Now overall, the JBL Boombox 3 is a solid speaker and I like it, but there are a few things that I wish JBL would have done differently. Nonetheless, if you're thinking about picking up the JBL Boombox 3, or if you're thinking about upgrading from the Boombox 2 or the original, let's see what the JBL Boombox 3 is all about.
Regarding pricing, the Boombox 3 retails for $500. And personally, I do find this a little surprising because the Boombox 3 is one of the few speakers from JBL that hasn't gotten a price increase recently. Nonetheless, if you want to pick this speaker up, it'll be linked down below, or you can press on the YouTube shopping button. Just give it a try. And if you want to further support the channel, check out the merch shelf down below. I've made some shirts and hoodies that look and feel great. And if you've been watching me for a while, you know I can be very particular. So I'll only set my name on something that I'm really proud of. Now first, let's talk about the design of this speaker. Now, looks-wise, the Boombox 3 now has that huge JBL logo on the front, which I know some people just aren't a huge fan of. But that's neither here nor there. But something that's also a little different on this speaker is its carrying handle. The carrying handle on the Boombox 3 is now metal. Now personally, I am indifferent about the look and feel of this metal carrying handle, but I still wish that the Boombox 3 had a shoulder strap like the Extreme 3. Now the Boombox 3 is still a portable speaker and it's easy enough to take on the go with you, but it is noticeably heavier than its predecessors. The Boombox 3 weighs in at 14.7 pounds, whereas the Boombox 2 and original Boombox weigh in at 13 pounds and 11.5 pounds, respectively. And this weight gain on the Boombox 3 is very noticeable. But like I said, the Boombox 3 is still easy enough to take on the go with you. The only thing that you want to keep in mind about the cylindrical design about this speaker is that if you throw it into the trunk of your car, you're going to have to secure it somehow, or else it's just going to roll around all in your trunk. But thanks to its mostly fabric wrapped body, the Boombox 3 is going to have no problem standing up to constant abuse, either from rolling around in your trunk, from bumps, or from scrapes. And in general, the Boombox 3 is a rugged speaker rocking an IP67 rating, meaning that it's both dust and water resistant. Now both the original Boombox and Boombox 2 are IPX7 rated, meaning that they're water resistant. But honestly, I wouldn't give this IP rating too much mind, because all of these speakers are equally as rugged. JBL is just trying to pad their spec sheet here. Just know that the Boombox 3 isn't afraid of water or of a downpour, and don't push in those passive radiators on the sides, and you'll be fine.
But now let's talk about tech specs. The Boombox 3 has the same 72.6 watt-hour battery as the Boombox 2, and this is actually a little smaller than the original Boombox, which has a 74 watt-hour battery in it. But nonetheless, all of these speakers have an advertised battery life of 24 hours. But that's with all of these speakers playing at 50% volume, which is already a decent listening volume for indoor use. But real-world use with the Boombox 3 playing at 80% volume, it's good for about 8 hours of playback time, the same as the Boombox 2. And I will say that this is a good thing because the Boombox 3 does have more speakers to drive than the Boombox 2. However, I did notice that since the Boombox 3 does have a brighter stock EQ than the Boombox 2, the Boombox 3 does sound a little louder than the Boombox 2 when they're both playing at 80% volume. And also the Boombox 3 does have a little bit more bass as well, just given that it has an extra subwoofer to it. But something that I do appreciate about the Boombox 3 is that it now charges via an AC port. You no longer have to keep track of an external power brick like you do with both the Boombox 2 and the original Boombox. And personally, I really do like this because I feel that it's much easier to replace this cable if something were to happen to it. And also, if you were to go to a friend's house, it's very likely that they probably have one of these lying around. Now, when it comes to Bluetooth connectivity, the Boombox 3 is using Bluetooth 5.3, but more importantly, the speaker can be connected to 2 devices at the same time, so you and a friend can both be DJ. The Boombox 3 has zero latency across the board when watching movies or videos on your phone, whether you're using an iPhone or an Android device. But when it comes to audio codecs, the Boombox 3 is still only using SBC. But if you want to, you can always just use a wired connection with the Boombox 3 because the speaker still has a 3.5mm audio jack. But this now leads us to one of the things that I wish JBL would have done differently. Unfortunately, the Boombox 3 doesn't have any USB-C ports on it like with the Extreme 3, where you can use this USB-C port as a wired connection, and you can also use it to charge your own devices, alongside also charging the Extreme 3. Now, the Boombox 3 still has a USB-A out port so that you can charge your own devices, but personally, I just think JBL should just get rid of these USB-A ports on their speakers, because most phones these days now just come included with USB-C cables instead. And unfortunately, with the Boombox 3, you can't plug in a USB stick into its USB-A ports and play music off of it, like you can with some other speakers out there, and like how you can with JBL's larger party box speakers. But overall, the port setup on the Boombox 3 gets the job done, and it's very similar to the ports on the Boombox 2. But personally, I was really hoping that the Boombox 3 would have a few USB-C ports on it so that you can charge your own devices and also use it as a wired connection if you wanted to.
But now let's talk about actually listening to music with these speakers. Regarding speaker setups, both the original Boombox and Boombox 2 have dual 4-inch frontward firing woofers, dual 3/4-inch frontward firing tweeters, and dual passive radiators that shoot out the sides. Whereas with the Boombox 3, the speaker is fairly different. Now, the Boombox 3 still has your exposed dual passive radiators that shoot out its sides, but this speaker now also has a frontward firing subwoofer. Now, this speaker still has a pair of frontward firing woofers for the mids, but they are a little smaller, coming in at 3.2 inches. But the Boombox 3 still has your dual frontward firing 3/4-inch tweeters. However, they're stacked on top of the mid-range woofers. Now, don't be alarmed, the Boombox 3 doesn't sound muffled because its tweeters are on top of its woofers. But I did find that the Boombox 3 is a little brighter than its predecessors when running off of its stock EQ. Nonetheless, we're going to jump into a sound test. All of these speakers are playing at 75% volume. Both the Boombox 3 and Boombox 2 are playing with their stock EQs, and the original Boombox is playing while it's in its indoors EQ.
Flashing lights dance with fire in the night. I'm wired. Watch the time pass us by. Here's this feeling lying. Could you pass the lighter? Yeah, I'm trying to keep my cool. Nicotine in my veins, flaming up the sides. What am I supposed to do? Cause it feels so good. Feeling wild like a zoo. Put me in a mood. Put me in a mood. Maybe I should've known that it ain't real. How'd you know how to get into my feelings? You're a trip giving me hopeless solution. Hopeless solution. Baby, I should've known that it ain't real. How'd you know how to get into my feelings? You're a trip giving me hopeless solution. Hopeless solution. Hopeless solution. Hopeless solution. You're a trip giving me hopeless solution. Hopeless solution. Yeah. Moving through all my feels, you're blurring up my vision. Watching your every smile like your television. In your eyes, I see myself, I'm falling. Make it make sense, it must be the temptation speaking. What am I supposed to do? Cause it feels so good. Feeling wild like a zoo. Put me in a mood. Put me in a mood. Maybe I should've known that it ain't real. How'd you know how to get into my feelings? You're a trip giving me hopeless solution. Hopeless solution. Maybe I should've known that it ain't real. How'd you know how to get into my feelings? You're a trip giving me hopeless solution. Hopeless solution. Hopeless solution. Hopeless solution. Maybe I should've known that it ain't real. 'Cause you know how to get into my feelings. You're a trip giving me hopeless solution. Hopeless solution. Hopeless solution.
So, like you may have just heard, sound signature-wise, the Boombox 3 does sound a little brighter than both the Boombox 2 and original Boombox. The highs on the Boombox 3 are more prominent, and personally, I'm not too surprised that the Boombox 3 has a brighter sound signature than its predecessor, because all of JBL's more recent speakers have come with a brighter stock EQ on them. But thankfully, the Boombox 3 has an adjustable EQ, which is a new feature for JBL speakers in general, and personally, I like to use this speaker with its bass raised 2 clicks and its treble lowered by 1 click, and I just leave the mids as is. With this setting, I find that the speaker sounds much more balanced. Now, thanks to a recent firmware update, surprisingly, the Boombox 2 also now has an adjustable EQ. Whereas with the original Boombox, you have its indoors mode, or you can use it while in its outdoors mode, which is going to make the speaker sound brighter by lowering its bass and raising its highs. But overall, performance-wise, I feel the Boombox 3 has very similar instrument separation to the Boombox 2. Whereas the original Boombox does sound a little narrow by comparison. But definitely, when used with the correct EQ settings, the Boombox 3 does have noticeably more bass to it than these other two speakers, thanks to its additional subwoofer. Even if you were to go in and raise the bass on the Boombox 2 all the way up, it's not going to match the Boombox 3. And regarding max volume, both the Boombox 3 and Boombox 2 have a higher output than the original Boombox. So at max volume, the original Boombox is a little quieter than these other two speakers. Now, even though the Boombox 2 and Boombox 3 have similar output ratings for their mid-range woofers, since the Boombox 3 has that additional front-wood-firing subwoofer, and since it does have a brighter sound signature, the Boombox 3 also manages to get noticeably louder than the Boombox 2. But with all of these speakers, if you were to use them while they're plugged in, you are going to get a noticeable performance boost out of them. They're all going to get a little louder, and they're all going to have noticeably more bass. But still, even while the Boombox 2 is plugged in, it's not going to get as loud or have as much bass as the Boombox 3. So overall, performance-wise, I will say the Boombox 3 performs better than the Boombox 2, and this is a much larger performance improvement than what we saw when going from the original Boombox to the Boombox 2. However, the performance boost that we're seeing from the Boombox 2 to the Boombox 3 is mostly just more bass and louder. Instrument separation here hasn't really been changed. And also keep in mind, in order to get the best sound quality out of this speaker, you have to go in and raise the bass and lower the treble on the speaker. Because while in its stock EQ, it is very bright and a little harsh. But when used with the correct EQ, the Boombox 3 no longer sounds relatively flat or nasally at higher volumes, which was an issue for the Boombox 2. The Boombox 3 does a much better job this time around of linearly increasing its bass as you increase its volume.
But now let's talk about pairing this speaker up with other speakers. Now, the JBL Boombox 3 is using JBL's Party Boost, meaning that you can pair it up to other Party Boost speakers, like either another Boombox 3 to a Boombox 2 to an Extreme 3 or a Charge 5 or to a Pulse 4, a Flip 5 or to a Flip 6, and you'll also be able to pair it up to the upcoming JBL Pulse 5, and you can pair up to 100 speakers together, which is obviously just overkill. But unfortunately, you cannot pair a Boombox 3 up to any of JBL's older speakers using JBL Connect Plus. So you cannot pair a Boombox 3 up to an original Boombox or to an Extreme 2 or to a Charge 4 or to a Charge 3 or a Pulse 3 or a Flip 4. Now, even though this does suck, Party Boost does have some performance improvements over JBL Connect Plus. Specifically, you can have a much larger distance between your two speakers, and also your speakers are just a lot faster to get paired up to one another. The only thing that you want to keep in mind here is that you cannot pair any of JBL's smaller Party Boost speakers to any of JBL's larger Party Box speakers. So you cannot pair a JBL Boombox 3 up to, let's say, a Party Box Encore or a 110, 310, or up to a 710. And also keep in mind, if you want to get left and right stereo sound going, you have to have two of the exact same speakers. Even if you have a Boombox 3 and a Boombox 2 like I do, they're only going to play in sync. But overall, JBL's Party Boost is my preferred speaker pairing protocol. You just press one button on each speaker, they get synced up, they start playing music, and skipping is not an issue. If you plan on getting multiple speakers and if you plan on constantly pairing them together, I do feel that JBL's Party Boost is the way to go. Plus, you also have a healthy ecosystem of speakers to choose from, and for the time being, it does look like this ecosystem is going to continue expanding.
But with all that being said, overall, I like and recommend the JBL Boombox 3. Now, there are some things that I don't like about it, like its brighter stock EQ. I'm also a little disappointed that it doesn't have any USB-C ports like on the Extreme 3 that will allow me to both charge my phone and use it as a wired connection. And I still really wish that there was a shoulder strap option for the Boombox 3. But besides that, I still like and recommend the Boombox 3. It gets noticeably louder than both of its predecessors, and thanks to its additional front-firing subwoofer, the Boombox 3 now has more bass than its predecessor, and it also no longer sounds nasally and flat at higher volumes. I also really like that the Boombox 3 now has an adjustable EQ, a new concept for JBL and something that the Boombox 3 does need. And if you do decide to pick up multiple JBL speakers to complement your Boombox 3, you have a healthy ecosystem to choose from. And plus, Party Boost just works. If you made it this far, I guess you enjoyed the video, so hit the like button and get subscribed. If you want to pick any of the products up, they'll be linked down below. And if you want to further support the channel, check out the merch. I made some shirts and hoodies that look and feel great. And you know I can be very particular, so I'll only slap my name on something if I'm really proud of it.